It's time for another PSA, a periodic strategic assessment as a public service announcement around potentially scary activities, but it's probably just silly assumptions. And now your hosts, Kainoa and Kalani.
Ano, aike aloha kako, and a happy new year to...
Happy New Year, gang.
And you know, the wicked just don't rest.
They don't at all.
So, here we are.
Tired as ever. And watching, because this is a PSA.
So, at least in recent news here in Hawaii, you know, some of the things that have been popping up, Kahu, have been we're looking at January 4th. We have an upcoming meeting with the UH Board of Regents. I think they're in the next search process for the next president.
Selecting the president for the University of Hawaii. Always a challenge.
And this year, completely new process in terms of lacking a bit of what I know some call the shared governance models. So inclusion of the students, the faculty, even the community, leaving it only to a committee of the whole to decide. And they're not even trying to put in an interim this year.
Well, so transparency is not really high on the agenda. That's interesting. We'll see what we can see, even though it's not that transparent.
And when it comes to some of the things that are also upcoming this month, it looks like we're also having January 17th come up, which we all know.
January 17th. It always makes me think of Uncle Hank.
Ew to Uncle Hank. And, you know, just continuing on that legacy, looks like our Lahui is getting ready to continue the march in honor of the now 131 years of one of those unrightable wrongs, seemingly.
I mean, and how do you right those unrightable wrongs, right? Everybody keeps throwing their hands up and saying, wasn't me. I think we got a whole crowd of shaggies. It wasn't me. You know what I mean? But the fact is, 131 years of illegal occupation by the Americans. And I want to ask as a favor this year, American citizens, educate yourself on the actual history.
And if that wasn't enough, I think the 17th is also the kickoff this year for the next legislative session.
Hey, that's what they always do. They always kick off the legislature session right on that date. And sometimes I think it's an attempt to have a news story that they can cover that's other than the illegal takeover.
And continuing on, you know, some of the things that some of the community have been, I think, worried about is, especially with Lahaina now, what is going to be the future of our water rights? What are the future of the environmental protections of Hawaii, and how those legislators are going to really look at that issue?
I mean, it's interesting, and especially when we seem to be finding a resolution to Pearl Harbor and the water problem there. And I think if we dig deeper, we're going to find that not all of the toxicity is gone. And I mean that literally and politically. So this all plays to the military-industrial complex that President Eisenhower warned about in his exit speech from the White House. And I think it's interesting to note, particularly as you bring up Lahaina, that Alexander and Baldwin might be the operating name of the corporation, but it's actually owned by BlackRock, I think, which is one of the largest military contractors in the United States. And wow, I think BlackRock actually bought out First Hawaiian Bank too. So again, the military-industrial complex beginning to assert itself here in Hawaii. So we should all be really cognizant of who's buying what where, because every single land transaction since 1893 is actually illegal.
Well, that's a new face to the Big Five.
Yeah, I guess so, right? I mean, we keep on trying to pretend that it's all copacetic. I mean, this must be the only area and region in the United States where you have to do escrow when you buy property, and at the end of paying escrow, they tell you how they cannot give you a title for the land because the land is all encumbered. It's like, really? So I'm paying a title guaranteeing company not to guarantee the title. I don't know of any other place in the world where that would actually fly, but lucky we live Hawaii.
Yeah, mahalo dui. Looks like this year is going to be off to a quite the rocky start. If not, we've got some storms and squalls on the horizon.
I'm telling you, you got to keep your eyes open, gangy. We got to keep paying attention, and we got to keep asking questions about everything that occurs here in paradise.
Yeah, and as far as when it comes to questioning everything in paradise, it seems like there's even some new weather changes that are going beyond, that are kind of out of this world.
Oh yeah, out of
so
this world is right. It's space weather, right? The United States is so interested in space weather at this point. Impacts of solar storms, things happening in the atmosphere. I got a friend who once said, you know, you're really not interested in what goes on in the atmosphere unless you're running the satellites or the missiles or whatever else is going on up in space. So that's an interesting thing. And tell me, the United States is in fact wanting to create this new capacity, right?
Yeah, just recently, the Biden administration had posted on December 22nd of this past year their new space weather implementation, I think, strategy plan.
Oh yes, I happened to take a glance at that. That section 1 is all about NOAA and the sciences and interpreting space weather. And in section 2 to section 5 seems to all be about land acquisition to create a hard facility under which they do this study. And I don't know, it seems to me like justification for the military to build a base on the top of that mountain there, Pakuloa, over on the field. And I'm pretty sure that's why they're sending Space Force. I think this is where it all gets into. Now it's space weather. So we're going to create a military force that can go to space for the good of all of us.
Sounds almost like Hollywood.
I'm telling you, it is kind of Holly weird. Turns out the Chinese have created hypersonic space delivery, and we got to figure out how to go up there and interrupt that service, as it were.
And it seems to all circle back to even, isn't that all UH facilities doing the monitoring?
Absolutely. So if UH is doing the science monitoring and being the smokescreen or the cover for the military-industrial complex as they build this capacity, which, by the way, is all illegal land seizures, whether it's the state of Hawaii, which is illegal, or the United States military, which is not illegal, but is here illegally occupying a foreign country. So let me say it slowly. Illegally occupying a sovereign nation, a foreign nation, one that was part of the European Nations League. Very interesting.
So looks like, at least for this upcoming year, we've got a lot to pay attention to.
Always. I mean, I think for the last 131 years, there's been a lot to pay attention to here in Hawaii, but they've been lobbing us smoke screens, lobbing us little bombs in the form of world wars, of empire wars with Spain, of, let's face it, even of television shows, live worldwide concerts by Elvis, you know, big old TV shows, Hawaii Five-0 and Magnum P.I., where the United States is saving the Hawaiians from a life of crime. I'm still trying to get it. The illegal entity that's doing land exchanges and acquisitions illegally, doing land seizures and controlling a people, really genocide illegally, is talking to us about how we live in a land of crime and how if it wasn't for them, we would not be safe. Wow, safety is overrated.
Didn't learn that one in the classroom.
Yeah, no kidding. They never teach us any of this stuff. You know what we learned in the classroom? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. What happened to pledging allegiance to the flag of the Hawaiian Kingdom?
Ao he pau ike, i ka halau ho o kahi.